You also explore the relationship of flow to other altered states like psychedelic states. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you chose to go down that path as well in this paper?
There's a ton of research on the psychedelic state. Like, as Robin Card-Harris's lab for years has been giving people psychedelics and imaging their brain. So we have a really good picture of, this is your brain on LSD, this is your brain on mushrooms, this is your brain on MDMA, this is your brain on DMT, right? And we had partnered a little bit with Richard's lab already years ago to do sort of like comparisons between flow state onset and some setting psychedelic stuff. So we knew that there was fruitful collaboration there, but it was, and we've got a lot of information about traumatic stress also. So we had less information about flow, but we've got really good data piles in these places, and there's a lot of overlap. So you don't normally think about the overlap, but like, for example, flow and traumatic stress both have complete concentration. You're going to be paying attention to the thing, right? We see in psychedelic states and in flow states that sensation of oneness with everything and the dissolution of self, time dilation. We see that. You also see time dilation or time passing strangely in traumatic stress. So there's all these overlaps in phenomenon also that you can start asking really good questions. Well, why is LSD doing this, flow is doing this, and trauma is doing this? And while there's maybe not enough information in any one of these piles to solve that question, you put them side by side and start looking at it that way, and it becomes really rich.
We wanted to extend our model into the psychedelic state, I think, for two reasons. One, because we know that psychedelics have a massive impact on treating with new psychotherapeutic approaches and psychedelic assisted therapy, PTSD, depression, even alcoholism, like all kinds of and we have a really good model about why that happens. This is based on Carhart-Harris's and Carl Friston, who's the top cited neuroscientist right now in the world. They have this model that describes how that happens and really explains very nicely why psychedelics work so well to alleviate these symptoms. We can talk about that. But the second reason, as Stephen said, is because there's a lot of similarity between the flow state and psychedelic state. So there's an altered perception of time. There's a diminishment and altered perception of self. So you have some, and we can put people in scanners and give them psychedelics and just let the world happen to them. And just, again, very difficult to do with flow, but very easy methodologically to do with psychedelics. Although legally there's people here in the States and the UK are trying right now to figure out how to study psychedelics in the lab, but we have really good, rich information about that happens. However, there are a lot of distinctions and points of departure between psychedelic state and a flow state. So in a flow state, you have clear goals. You are bringing a certain skill set to your task, to the challenge at hand. There's immediate feedback and so on, which you don't get in the psychedelic state. I mean, going back to the motorcyclist scenario, imagine the motorcyclist, what they would do if they were driving down that highway 90 miles an hour and a car swerves and they were on shrooms. Much different outcome, right? So we can make inferences about what happens and how the brain transitions into a flow state from looking at what we already know about this data, neuroimaging data from the psychedelic state. And we think we've covered that very comprehensively in the paper, and it provides a really good tool to extend the model to understand what's going on in the brain during the flow state and how it gets into the flow state versus, for example, trauma.